Dark clouds covered the skies of Velar Prime. Smoke rose from the mountains. The once beautiful cities were now filled with fire, ash, and silence. Screams had stopped hours ago. The only sound left was the slow, heavy sound of enemy ships circling, above like hungry predators. The Valari people were peaceful. They had never known war. Their cities were open, their defenses weak. They believed in trade, music, and science, not weapons. That belief was breaking now, piece by piece. High above in the main tower, Elder Saran stood with trembling hands. His green eyes looked up to the sky, waiting for an answer to a message he had sent out hours ago. The message was simple. Please, help us. We are under attack. We have no weapons. We are dying. It had been sent across the galaxy on every open frequency. Any race with ships could have heard it. Allies, traders, empires. Someone should have come. But no one did. Saran turned to the communication officer, a young Valari girl named Lessa. Her face was pale, her fingers shaking on the console. Any answer? Saran asked, though he already knew. She slowly shook her head. Nothing. Not even static. The enemy wasn't hiding. Their warships floated openly, proud and loud, like they wanted the galaxy to see. This was not just a battle, it was a message. The enemy, the Kroon Empire, wanted to show everyone what would happen if you refused to pay tribute. And the Valari had refused. They thought their allies would protect them. They were wrong. In the outer village of Gren, a young Valari boy named Rin sat in a basement with his mother. The ceiling shook from the distant blasts. He held her hand tightly. She whispered stories to calm him, but even her voice trembled. Suddenly he looked up. Through a crack in the basement roof, he saw a strange light in the sky. It wasn't red like the enemy fire. It was white and blue. It moved fast, faster than anything he had seen, and then another one, and another. He pointed up. What's that, Mama? She didn't answer. She had no words, no explanation. No guess. She just stared. And for a moment she forgot to be afraid. Far above the planet, beyond the orbit where enemy ships watched and waited, something arrived. Something new. They came quietly, with no signal, no announcement. Their ships were black and sharp, shaped like weapons. Unlike the Kroon ships that flew proudly and wide, these ships moved like shadows. No music, no lights, just deathly silence. On board one of the black ships, a human commander named Elias, Granger stood in the dark. He stared at the planet below with cold eyes. His crew waited for orders. They knew what they came for. He spoke into his command mic. Scan complete? Confirmed, sir, said his officer. Kroon fleet in low orbit, 23 ships. Ground forces in every major city. Civilian losses high. Elias nodded once. Rules of engagement? The officer hesitated. They asked for help. Elias didn't need more. Then we helped them. Begin operation. No mercy, no survivors. The black ships moved. On Velar Prime, alarms screamed as new ships entered the atmosphere. The Kroon noticed them late, too late. One by one, Kroon warships exploded in the sky. No warnings, no messages, just fire. The Valari looked up from their shelters and saw a new war begin. Inside the main tower, Elder Saran fell to his knees. He thought it was the end. Then a human voice came through the main screen. It was deep and clear. To the people of Velar Prime, you called for help. Humanity has answered. Lessa gasped. Humans? I thought they were myths. Saran whispered. They are not myths. They are what comes when the galaxy closes its ears. The humans didn't land in the cities first. They dropped in the middle of enemy territory. Their soldiers wore dark armor. Their helmets had no faces. They moved like machines. But they were not machines. They were angry and very real. At first, the Kroon laughed. They had never lost a battle. But when their camps started burning one by one, the laughter stopped. The humans didn't talk. They didn't give chances. They didn't ask questions. They hunted. In one of the burned towns, a Valari family crawled out from the ruins. A croon. Patrol spotted them and raised weapons. Suddenly, the croon soldier fell, a hole in his chest. No sound. No warning. A human sniper stood in the shadows, then vanished. The family didn't run. They simply watched. Then the father said, "They came. The humans came." Back in space, the remaining croon ships tried to flee. But the humans had already locked them in. More black ships appeared, surrounding them like wolves. One by one, they were torn apart. Commander Elias watched the last explosion. Then he spoke again. To the Valari, "The enemy is broken. But this is not the end. We stay until you are safe." The Valari had no words. They had no songs for this. Only tears. And silence. The humans landed fully the next day. Their ships sat in the fields like sleeping beasts. Valari citizens came out slowly, unsure whether to fear or cheer. The humans didn't hold parades. They didn't wave. They worked, they built walls, they scanned the ruins, they gave food, water, and power. Then they waited. Elder Saran met Commander Elias in person. The human looked tired. Not cruel, not proud, just tired. "Why did you come?" Saran asked. Elias replied, "Because no one else did." Saran looked at him. "But you don't even know us." Elias gave a cold smile. "We've been you. Long ago. We don't forget." From that day on, the stars changed for the Valari. They were not alone anymore. The galaxy had many races, many empires, many powers, but only one species had answered the call, and they came not with peace, but with fury. The sky above Valar Prime was still heavy with smoke, but the stars were clearer now. The enemy ships that once darkened the skies were gone. In their place hovered strange black ships. The Valari watched from their windows and rooftops, not knowing what to expect. These new ships were unlike anything they had ever seen. Silent, fast, and sharp, like birds of night waiting for the right moment to strike. In the capital city, Elder Saran stood beside a small group of Valari leaders. Their faces were tired and unsure. What did these new visitors want? Would they stay? Would they help? Or would they bring new dangers? Suddenly, the communication screen flickered. A human face appeared, calm and serious. The man's eyes were clear and steady. He spoke slowly so the Valari could understand. "We are here to help," he said. "You asked for help, and we answered. But this help is not easy. The world is dangerous, and enemies still watch. We will protect you, but you must be ready to stand with us." The Valari whispered among themselves. "Stand with them?" What did that mean? They had no weapons, no experience in war. Could they fight? Should they fight? Fear filled their hearts. Meanwhile, in a quiet street, Rin, the young boy who had seen the strange lights, looked at the humans with wide eyes. One of the soldiers noticed him and smiled gently. It was the first friendly face the Valari had seen in days. The soldier knelt down and showed Rin a small device that could shine light in many colors. Rin reached out and touched it, feeling hope for the first time. Back in the human ships, Commander Elias studied the planet below. He knew the Valari needed more than protection. They needed to learn how to survive. He called his officers together. "We cannot stay forever," Elias said. "They must become strong, or this will happen again. We will teach them." The officers nodded. They began making plans to train the Valari in simple ways to defend themselves, not to fight wars, but to protect their homes. The humans did not want to change the Valari people. They wanted to help them stand on their own feet. Days passed. The humans worked with the Valari to rebuild homes and bring fresh water. The skies grew clearer, and children began to play again in the streets, but the adults were still worried. The enemy was not gone forever. They could return. One evening, at a small gathering, Elder Saran asked a human officer, Why do you help us? What do you gain? The officer smiled softly. Long ago, our world was weak and scared. We were ignored, left alone. We promised ourselves we would never leave others to suffer the same way. Saran looked into the officer's eyes. For the first time, he felt something he had not known in many weeks. Trust. But trust was fragile. That night, a dark shadow moved at the edge of the city. Some Valari saw it and whispered that the enemy might return. The humans were ready. There, ships quietly hummed with power, lights glowing under the dark sky. The Valari learned that the humans did not fight for glory. They fought because they must. Rin sat with the soldier again. Will the bad ships come back? He asked quietly. The soldier looked at the stars. Maybe. But we will be ready. And so will you. The boy smiled for the first time in a long time. The days grew longer, and the Valari began to change. They learned to listen to the humans, to trust their guidance, and to believe in themselves. The humans did not ask for thanks. They said only one thing before leaving each day. Stay strong. And the Valari did. But somewhere in the dark space beyond, the enemy fleet was gathering again. This time, they would not find Velar Prime as easy a target. The galaxy had changed. The quiet Valari world had found new strength, and the humans, they were ready to return whenever the call came again. The stars above Velar Prime shone bright and cold as the new day dawned. The air was filled with a quiet tension, like the moment before a storm breaks. The Valari people had begun to rebuild their lives, but deep inside, many still felt fear. Their enemy was not far away, and the danger was not over. The humans who had come to protect them were powerful, but even they knew that peace was fragile. Commander Elias stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the planet below. His face was calm, but his mind raced with plans. The enemy was regrouping, and they would try again to take the Valari home. This time, the humans could not simply protect. They had to prepare for what was coming. He turned to his officers. We must teach the Valari more, he said. They need to understand how to defend themselves. We cannot be everywhere at once. If they learn, they will be stronger. If they do not, this will happen again. The officers nodded. Training began quickly. Humans showed the Valari how to use simple tools, how to watch the skies, and how to move quietly when danger came. They did not teach fighting like war. They taught protection, watching, and standing firm. In the heart of the city, Rin listened carefully as a human woman explained how to build small shelters that could hide families during attacks. His eyes were wide with curiosity. For the first time, he felt that maybe his world was not so weak. At night, the Valari gathered around fires, sharing stories. Some told old tales of peaceful days before the Kroon arrived. Others spoke of the humans who had come like shadows and stayed like guardians. There was hope now, a small, shining hope. But the enemy was not idle. Far beyond Velar Prime, dark ships gathered silently. They watched the human ships and whispered of plans. They knew the humans were different, stronger, smarter, more dangerous. They would need more than numbers to win. Back on the planet, a meeting was held between Valari leaders and the human commanders. Elder Saran looked at the humans with respect. He asked, how can we trust that this protection will last, that the enemy will not return with greater power? Elias answered simply, trust is built over time. We cannot promise forever, but we promise this. We will fight as long as you need, but you must fight too in your way. That night, Rin dreamed of stars and ships. He saw humans standing beside Valari warriors, their faces bright with determination. He felt a strange courage inside him. When he woke, he knew he wanted to be part of that new strength. The days passed and the training continued. Valari learned to read signals, to set simple alarms, and to protect their homes. Humans shared stories of their own past, of times when they too were weak and afraid. This sharing created a bond between the two species. One evening, a message arrived for the humans. It was from a nearby star system asking if the humans would come to help. Elias read the message carefully. It was a call for aid like the Valaris had been. He looked at his officers and said, "This is not just about one planet. It is about standing with those who are alone. We cannot turn away." The Valari heard the decision and understood. Their protectors were warriors not just of weapons but of promise. Rin watched as the black ships prepared to leave. He felt proud and hopeful. He whispered, "We are not alone." The stars waited quietly. The next chapter was beginning. The stars above Valar Prime seemed to watch silently as the black ships lifted from the planet's surface. The quiet hum of engines filled the air, a sound that had become familiar but still held weight in the hearts of the Valari. Their protectors were leaving, but not forever. They had promised to return if the call came again. And the galaxy was restless. Commander Elias stood on the bridge of the flagship, eyes sharp as he scanned the stars ahead. The message from the nearby system was clear, a plea for help, much like the one from Valar Prime. This was no coincidence. The galaxy was changing, and more worlds were facing threats they could not meet alone. The humans were not just soldiers, they were a symbol of hope. They carried the weight of many planets on their shoulders. As the ships moved through space, the crew prepared for what lay ahead. Every man and woman aboard knew that this mission was not about glory. It was about standing with those who had nowhere else to turn. On Valar Prime, the Valari watched the ships leave with mixed feelings. Some were grateful, others worried. What if the humans did not return in time? What if the enemy grew stronger while the protectors were away? Elder Saran gathered the leaders to speak. "We must be ready," he said quietly. "We must learn to stand as they have taught us. We cannot be the same people who waited for help. We must be the people who prepare for what comes." The Valari began training harder, practicing what the humans had taught them. They built watch stations, learned to move quietly through the forests, and used new tools to signal danger. They no longer felt like victims. They were becoming guardians of their own world. In the distance, young Rin ran through the fields with other children, their laughter ringing like music. The fear was still there, but it was softer now, pushed back by hope and courage. Rin's eyes looked to the sky, imagining the black ships returning with the humans. Meanwhile, far away, the enemy watched and waited. They saw the humans leave Valar Prime and sensed a chance. But the enemy had changed too. They were planning carefully, not rushing blindly as before. They understood that the humans were different, smarter, more determined. Back on the human flagship, Elias studied star maps and reports. The new system was dangerous, with many unknowns. The crew prepared carefully, knowing the mission might be harder than anything they had faced. One evening, as stars glittered outside the windows, Elias spoke to his crew. "We go not just to fight, but to show that no one stands alone. We carry the strength of many and the promise of protection." The crew listened, their faces calm but ready. On Valar Prime, Elder Saran spoke to the people in the main square. "Our protectors have left to answer another call, but their lesson stays with us. We must watch, we must learn, and we must stand strong. This is our home." The people cheered softly, their voices filled with determination. As days passed, the Valari grew stronger. They no longer waited in fear. They moved with purpose, learning, growing. The bond with the humans was deepening, even across the distance. Rin found himself dreaming of the stars again. Not just the black ships, but of a future where the Valari stood proud among the stars. No longer alone or weak, and in the dark corners of space, new lights moved quietly, ships from many places, ready to answer calls for help, ready to stand together. The galaxy was changing. New stories were beginning. The stars above Valar Prime twinkled quietly as the planet continued its slow healing. The days grew warmer, and life returned to the forests and fields that had once been silent and still. But beneath this calm, a new energy was growing, an energy of change, hope, and readiness. Commander Elias stood in the command room of his ship, looking at the holographic map of the galaxy. Lines and dots showed worlds calling for help, places caught in the same shadow that had once threatened Valar Prime. The humans had answers now, but the answers came with responsibility. They could not simply arrive and protect. They had to build strength in those they helped. "Prepare the training teams," Elias said firmly. "We will not just fight for others. We will teach them to stand on their own." Back on Valar Prime, Elder Saran watched as the Valari worked together, building tools and shelters. The people were no longer waiting to be saved. They were becoming protectors of their own land. It was a slow process, full of small victories and challenges. But the hope was real. Rin, now a little older, walked through the training grounds. Humans and Valari moved side by side, practicing signals and strategies. Rin held a small device in his hands, a gift from the humans, that could send light signals over long distances. He smiled as he watched his friends learn and grow. At night, the sky sometimes flickered with distant lights, ships moving through the dark void, heading to worlds that had sent their silent calls for help. The galaxy was connected now, bound by the promise that no one would face darkness alone. On one of the training days, a Valari woman named Lyra approached Elias. Her voice was soft but strong. "Your people have given us more than weapons and tools. You have given us hope, but what if we fail? What if we cannot learn fast enough?" Elias looked at her kindly. "No one expects you to be perfect," he said. "What matters is that you try, that you keep trying. Strength grows from effort, not from never falling." The Valari nodded, feeling a new kind of courage. Meanwhile, far beyond the edge of known space, the enemy watched and waited. They had seen the changes, the new strength rising in the worlds the humans touched. They were not the same as before. They would have to be more clever, more patient to face this new force. On Valar Prime, a quiet ceremony was held. The Valari honored the humans who had come to their aid, not with weapons or trophies, but with stories and songs. Children sang songs about stars and courage, about friends who came from far away. Rin stood among them, feeling proud. He had grown from a frightened boy into a young Valari ready to face the future. That night, as the fires burned low, Rin looked to the stars and whispered, "We will be ready." And far away, the human ships sailed toward the next call, carrying hope, courage, and the promise that the galaxy was no longer alone. The story was far from over. It was only just beginning. The stars stretched endlessly above Valar Prime, silent witnesses to the passage of time and the quiet strength growing on the world below. The planet had changed in ways few could have imagined. Where fear once ruled, now stood determination. Where despair lingered, hope had taken root. Commander Elias looked out from his ship's observation window. The galaxy spread before him like a vast map of endless possibilities. The calls for help had not stopped. In fact, they had grown louder, more urgent. But now there was a new answer, one not just of power, but of unity. On Valar Prime, the Valari had become more than survivors. They had become guardians. Their training had deepened, their skills sharpened, and their spirits strengthened. The bond with the humans had forged something new, a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. Elder Saran walked through the city streets watching the people. Builders worked side by side with teachers. Children practiced signals and codes alongside soldiers. The world was alive with learning and growth. The Valari were no longer waiting for rescue. They were preparing to stand strong, no matter what came next. Rin, now a young man, stood on a hill overlooking the valley below. He held the light device given to him by the humans, feeling its gentle glow warm in his hand. Around him, others gathered, ready to send signals across the land to watch and protect. A sudden message arrived from the nearby system the humans had journeyed to before. They had found new friends there, others who had once been alone and afraid but were now rising, ready to face the future together. The galaxy was becoming a network of hope. Commander Elias gathered his officers. "This is our moment," he said. "We have shown that help is possible, that no one needs to face the darkness alone. Now we build a future where every world can stand with courage. Back on Valar Prime, the people held a celebration unlike any before. Songs filled the air, stories were told, and laughter echoed under the stars. For the first time in a long time, they did not feel small or forgotten. They felt part of something greater. Rin looked up at the sky, imagining the ships traveling across the stars, carrying hope to those who needed it most. "We are not alone," he whispered, "and we never will be." As night deepened, the hum of ships returned, this time bringing more allies, more friends. The promise made long ago was kept. The galaxy was waking up, and with it came a new era of strength, friendship, and light. The story that began with a silent plea had grown into a chorus of voices. Together, they would face whatever the future held. Together, they would stand, strong. The stars above Valar Prime watched over it all, shining brighter than ever.